Hi everyone, today I'm thrilled to chat with Trinity Merwyn. I first came across Trinity in my Instagram feed. Trinity is part of the team of Bellwether, who provide analytic tools for bricks and mortar retailers. And we're going to talk about that during the podcast. But what really took my attention was the posts that they were doing, because their posts were about teaching retailers how to sell. And so they were giving the retailers the insights that you need to actually make a sale once you've got the people in the door. And there's not a lot of that I've come across, and I loved it. So it was actually Trinity who came to me first to approach, but I was so happy because we both very aligned on our views on what we think we should be talking about and what retailers need to be doing to maximize their business. So welcome, Trinity.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I really appreciate it. I'm so happy to be on the podcast. I'm a big fan, so it's actually super exciting to be doing one of these with you. It's always wonderful when we can connect with other like-minded retail sort of fanatics, I'll say, out there in the community. So yeah, love your work and I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you so much. And you're so right. I love it. I really do get a buzz out of talking retail, talking business with people who love it and people who've got open minds to learn and to share their experiences as well, which is obviously, as a guest, you are well and truly sharing your expertise with us today. I wanted to start, though, by giving you a bit of background. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your retail journey?
100%. So I'm a bit of a rambler, so you'll have to interrupt me if I start going on a tangent. But I feel like where I am now, it's at this place where I've almost come full circle. So my first ever adult job in the real world was working in a really gorgeous little boutique store here in my hometown. And it was wonderful. I worked there for about a year and a half. I liked it, but I must admit now where I am, looking back on it, I always think, gosh, I wish I could go back and sort of do that all again. So I'm so lucky to be back in a kind of a place where I can sort of start to play in that retail scene again. Because from there, so I worked in retail, and then from there I wanted to become an actress in the city, as you do. So I headed off and did my big city excursion. But as you do when you go to become an actress in the city, I ended up working in hospitality for quite a long time. So I spent about 6 years working in mostly restaurants, but some cafes as well. It was probably the first place where I kind of woke up a little bit in terms of what truly awesome and amazing and epic customer experiences should look like, and just the honor and privilege that it is for us who are potentially providing those. And it definitely hit home in those days. I had an amazing mentor that she was so driven by what we can do to create really wonderful experiences for our guests and have them walking out the door going like, oh my goodness, I just cannot wait to come back. So that was my hospitality excursion. From there, I did a bit of like project management stuff for a few different companies. And then I tripped and fell and ended up working at Bellwether, which is a software company. We do retail analytics. It's something I didn't even know really was a thing before. But I'm so lucky to be working here because I love the team. I love what we do. And like I said, it's this crazy full circle experience of now we're back in this place where we're able to sort of help retailers with innovative kind of ideas, drive home amazing experiences in retail stores. So a bit of a ramble, but that's my my backstory and how I ended up here. Yeah.
I love that. And I also love the actor in there and the
As you
fact that you're
do.
now
Yeah.
spending your days doing your videos, which, for the retailers who struggle to be in front of the camera, obviously Trinity finds it a little bit easier with the background there, but it's still, everyone finds it hard to look back at yourself to get the edits right. And, I'm sure you're the same as me, many edits before you get it right. But
Mini edits. Yeah, that's why something like like what we're doing here, it's very a little bit, that's what makes it a little bit nervous, right? Having that live interaction and you're chatting with somebody real time versus when you're doing social media content where it's quite staged, right? You can kind of plan out what you're going to say, and then you can say it 70 times until you sound like an absolute expert, and then you can pick that clip and you can publish that clip. But it all comes back to human connections, right? If we get out there and we start talking to people, that's so important, and we've got to keep doing that.
Absolutely, totally agree with you. And as much as some people want to stay away, we have to find ways to connect. Which actually brings me into the first question that I was thinking about for you before we get into kind of the nitty-gritty of what we're talking
Mm.
about. I'd love to know what you think is the reason people buy, why
Yes,
they shop.
this is a topic that I think about a lot. Just in the last year, it's really been something that's kind of on my mind, because what I'm sort of seeing, you see people sort of, they can buy anything they want at any time of the day, right? You've got Temu, you've got Shein on your phone. You can decide, I want a new drink bottle. I'm going to just buy it and it'll come to my door in like 2 days. And if that is available to you, right, in my head, it's kind of like, oh, why bother going into a store? Well, why would you take the time to get in the car and drive to the mall and go to that store and talk to that person and buy the thing in person? That's almost half a day, right? But people are still doing that.
Mm,
That's not gone away. Retail has not died. I feel pretty, I
yep,
feel pretty,
100%.
yeah, pretty strong about that. And I think it's because as long as humans are working in retail, we will want to go and connect with other humans. And that's what you get out of a shopping experience. If you have an amazing experience with a store and you have that interaction that you kind of just walk out of the store like absolutely glowing, you feel like you've found a friend, they've kind of had a bit of banter with you, they've maybe recommended some products that you didn't even think about buying, and you feel like, oh yeah, that's the person, they know me, they know my story. You really connected with someone. And I think that's why we do shop. I think we want to go and we want to talk to somebody and we want to connect, we want to hear their story. And I just think it's so exciting that if you work in retail, you get to be a facilitator for this connection through stories. That's your role in a store. You're a guide and you're there to facilitate a connection, which I think is just, what a privilege, right?
Absolutely, totally agree with you. And it's actually, as you've been saying that, I've just been reminded way back. In fact, our daughter's 20, about to turn 24, and she was born in England. We lived over there for a while. When we first moved there, we were moved into a suburb that couldn't see anyone.
Mm.
I didn't know anyone. Husband was off at work every day. It was very lonely. Then we moved to very close to the city, and every day I'd just walk into the city, I'd walk around, and I felt like I was part of the community. I was going into the stores, so I was interacting with stores. I was just seeing people around us. And I think even people in shopping centres, even if you're not doing much interacting, you're still part of a community of people who are doing something. And I think it helps people feel that connection. Even if some people are, don't want to talk, they're introverts, whatever, but it still helps them feel that.
100%. I think it's, and like, sort of, I'm sure you'll have thoughts on this as well with your relationship to social media and marketing and that side of things, because the other aspect that we've got going on is we've got this world of social media, but it's not that social, right? Like, it's, you'll go through the feed or whatever and you scroll and you like and you comment, but you're not actually talking to somebody, you're
No.
not actually interacting, and they're not actually there in the room. So to be able to go to a mall or a store and bump into somebody that maybe you've built a bit of rapport with and there's a bit of a connection and they know you, right? Like, that's your customer loyalty aspect. You just can't put a price on that. I think that's just pretty wonderful. Yeah.
And people buy from people, as we say. That's why those other stores will continue and they will continue to take market share. But for retailers, good retailers to do well, they've got to recognise and lean into connecting with their customers and being part of their lives in some way, making them feel like they've got that connection.
Like, another aspect of that, a confusion that comes out of that idea where it's like, okay, I've got to like connect with my customers and I've got to create an amazing experience and stuff like that. I don't think that is necessarily to be confused with, I've always got to make sure my customer feels like I'm saying they're right and like, yes, that's perfect, da 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 da. I think there's a lot of rapport building that can come out of actually like having a little bit more fun with your customer, and maybe having that like, I'm sure you could think of a shopping experience where you had a bit of like banter with
Yep.
the retailers, and you just feel like when there's humor, right, that's so
Yep.
much more exciting than like, yes, that's perfect for you, great color. It's like, I want to hear, no, don't ever wear tan, like, it's going to absolutely just does you no favors, but over here we've got these pink jackets and you're going to rock them, like, yeah. Yeah,
keeping it real and giving
yeah,
real advice,
yeah.
proper advice, like actual expertise advice, as you say, rather than hard selling, which is
Yes,
effectively the other option that you're talking about.
yes.
This is a another, again, I don't know why this has jumped in my head. My dad went to Queensland for a
Yeah.
conference when I was much younger, as a teenager. He got off the plane and we looked at him and went, holy crap. And some retailer had looked at this man who went in there going, I need some clothes, and just thought this is my budget for the month, and bought
Oh,
and sold him all this, stuff that was just not on. But anyway,
yeah.
it was just a little on the side. So let's go away and leave my
Yeah,
poor
no,
father, who now dresses well.
yeah, it's got to be. I think that like that salesy, because so often, right, when you're a retailer, it comes back to like, okay, like I've got to hit my sales target, or like for us, it's a lot of, I've got to hit my conversion target for the day. To do that, I've got to sell stuff to people, and I'm okay. Well, when they come in, I'll say like, here's the latest promotion, and you go straight into it. But no one wants to buy from someone that feels maybe a little bit pushy or a little bit like slimy. That's the word I always use. It feels slimy
Yeah.
sometimes. It's like, oh, you can just you can smell it from the doorway when you walk into the
Yeah.
store. So it always, I think, in whatever sort of retail selling strategy you're employing in your store, it has to come back to being genuine and authentic. And sometimes that means telling your customers that maybe that's not the right size for them, or it's not the right color, or here's a different option, or even, and this is a bit controversial, but even sometimes making a recommendation that they should go check out a retailer down the road because they've got the right option for them. That's still, you're going to create so much more loyalty to your brand by providing a genuine sort of piece of assistance than just selling for the sake of hitting your sales target, right?
Absolutely. It's long term. It's long term thinking. And as long as you've gone through with that client and you've tried to help them and you've
Mm.
shown them every option that might be viable for them, and then between you, you're both going, do you know what? I know that you're settling here. Why don't you quickly just check and see if they're going to solve your problem? And I've heard that story time and time again. The people will go back to the first retailer
Yeah,
because they know they can trust them.
100%. It always comes back to trust.
I mentioned upfront that I love your socials. I just think it's great to have a service provider who is actually providing a service to their customers effectively with
Thank
your
you. That's
socials,
lovely.
rather than just a sales message all the time. And you're constantly giving lots of tips to retailers, particularly in this bricks and mortar one-on-one space. One thing you talk about, I'm reading my notes here, GMCU, and you
Yes,
use that or those letters often in your socials. Can you talk us through what that stands for and why it's important to
100%.
retailers?
Definitely. Okay, this is my, oh man, I can talk about this for days. This is, gosh. Okay, GMCU is, so it stands for Greet, Meet, Close, and Upsell. It's a retail selling strategy or a framework. I think I said at the beginning of this, I don't know if we're recording, but I'm a very lists and sort of lists and frameworks kind of orientated person. And what Greet, Meet, Close, and Upsell is our decision around what the non-negotiables should be for a retail sales interaction. So every store or organization might have a slight variation. There might be things that you have to talk about during certain phases of your interaction with your customers. But at the very basic, bare minimum, or especially if you're a new retailer and you don't have a framework in place yet, you should absolutely 100% every customer that walks into your store, right? You should absolutely greet them. You should absolutely meet them. You then need to close the sale. And this is where things usually fall over a little bit.
Yeah.
You might have someone that's quite confident greeting and chit-chatting, and then they just kind of forget to ask for the sale. So you don't hit that conversion target for the day. So once you've closed, you've asked for the sale, you should 100% absolutely give upselling a go, right? Because that's where you're maximizing the sale. And ideally, you're adding value for the customer as well. So you upsell, and then you close, and then you upsell, and then you close, and you rinse and recycle those two stages until you're absolutely perfect in that sort of golden zone with that customer, and they're just super happy with you and walk out with the basket size that is appropriate for that person. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with great. So, do you think as soon as someone walks in, what's your kind of view on how that sort of
100%.
process should
Yeah.
be?
Yeah. This is again, people have different sort of viewpoints. I I am a pretty firm, and I'll fight for it pretty hard. I believe that you should greet every customer within 10 seconds. But the caveat there, and I think we're going to talk about it a little bit later, is a greeting is not, hi, like, how are you going? Is there anything I can help you with today? My name's Trinity, and, I grew up in this town over here, and you just go into this whole, like, no. A greeting is good morning or good afternoon, and it's really short and sweet. You make eye contact and you smile. Make it clear that you're a staff member, because in some stores, you don't always wear a uniform, and it can be a little bit tricky to know who's going to be taking your purchase at the end of the interaction. So really important. Those are the critical ones with greeting.
Okay, so you've greeted them. What's your kind of time frame, and what goes next?
You can try, and I have thought about it in terms of like a time limit, but I think what's actually better is having a bit of a trigger sort of framework. So in terms of transitioning out of that greeting phase and into the meeting phase, the meeting phase is kind of the fun. This is where you're going to talk about benefits and features of products, and you're going to kind of flex your little, product knowledge muscles. If you've got like quite deep product knowledge, that's awesome. You're going to like go into that with the customer, and then, maybe get them into the changing room. So it's quite a complicated phase, the retail interaction. But in terms of knowing when you could kind of like go in for that approach, I like to keep it pretty simple. And as soon as my customers are starting to pick product up off the shelves, or you see them kind of, running their hands on a top or something like that, and you can see they're a little bit interested, as soon as they start interacting with the product, that's when I would go in for my meeting phase. The scariest thing about the meeting phase is the fact that, like, distilling it down back to what we're doing as humans, you're starting a conversation with a stranger, right? That's what you're doing. It's kind of like, okay, this person's come into my store. They know I'm the, they know I'm the retail sales assistant because I've greeted them. But now I've got to like start chatting to them, and that's easy for some people, and it's really hard for other people. So the easiest way to segue into a meeting phase with a customer, I think, is to open with a compliment. It's, gosh, I love your backpack. Where did you get it? Oh my goodness, that's just like the perfect color of pink, or whatever you want to say. The caveat on the compliment as you're open is that it needs to be genuine and authentic, because if you're lying, they'll be able to tell so easily. So you have to genuinely notice something about your customer that you love. And I think that practice of sort of doing that and noticing cool things about people in your store is actually one of the more rewarding parts of training that in yourself as well. It's like, oh, that's awesome. That's a good skill for me to develop as well.
I must say, I've come from Christmas decor, and the big items we sold was Christmas trees. So anything with a larger price ticket that was going to last a long time. And people would come in and you'd start, you'd go over and, hi, is there anything I can help you with? Do you need any information about the trees? And they, often just looking, they get that. But I would always just take a moment to say, look, totally understand. Here's our information about it. My name's Nicole. If you've got any questions once you've had a look, come over. So you're just making that little bit of extra effort than hello, but give them time, because some people do not want it. And then you've opened the doors to then them coming to you, or you keep an eye and you can see what's going on, and then you can go back in there and ask if they've got any more questions, and you can help them.
I think the name aspect is a beautiful touch. Like, any time I've been in a store where they've just said like, hey, I'm Trinity, just, these are maybe our promotions and stuff like that. I'll just be over in the back if you need me or anything like that. It's wonderful. You should always get the name of your customer if you can and it's appropriate. It's a wonderful touch. The other sort of interesting thing about, maybe it's the middle space between greeting and meeting, but say you've had that greeting and then you kind of go in for that meeting phase. Maybe you do ask if they're looking at a product. It's like, oh, do you want any more sort of information on these backpacks or something like that? We've got a couple of different sizes, and I'm happy to break it down for you. If they give you that, like, no, I'm just looking, that's, we've all had that, right? Like, no, I'm just looking, like, and you feel quite rejected sometimes, because sometimes it's a little bit harsh. It's like, no, just leave me alone. That's totally fine. That's absolutely 100% fine. And I was chatting to a lady, she's worked in retail something like 26 years or something like that. Amazing, sort of similar stores. I think it was across 3 stores. So really knows her stuff, and she's been in the industry for ages. I said, well, how do you deal with those bad greetings where you've like gone in and you've tried to start talking to somebody. No, I'm just looking, and they put the hand up. No, leave me alone. How do you deal with that? Because it pretty much makes me want to cry. I'm like, oh no, I've failed. I'm gonna like this sale. Might as well just go out the back and do some stock or something. And she was like, oh, I love those. And I was like, really? No, you must be odd. Like, that's so strange. She was like, no, I've got this really good comeback. It works every time. I was like, oh my goodness, I need to hear this. She was like, when they say, I'm just browsing, you say, oh, that's wonderful. I love just browsing too. When I go into a store, I browse, I browse away. If your browsing does take you in this direction, I'll let you know that, we've got this promotion running, etc. But anyway, my name is Trinity, and I'm up the back if you need me for anything. I thought that was so brilliant. I was like, I'm going to use that.
Absolutely perfect. You're right. You're keeping the doors open, you're keeping that engagement, and you've got to work to the client level. You've got to make the client comfortable. If you push your personality on the client, if you are too gregarious, if you're too shy, if you're too grumpy, and they're the opposite, it's not going to work. So you've just got to try and mirror, and again, in a genuine way, but read the signs of the interaction.
It's the common sense, and it's also I think it's maybe a topic we can dive into a little bit. In my mind, what sort of working for Bellwether has kind of, again, made me wake up to, right? And this is why I always sort of look back on my first job and I think, gosh, if I knew what I knew now, it's this idea of retail gamification, right? It's how do we make our retail 9 to 5 day job just insanely fun, right? How do we make it exciting, and you get to work in the morning and you're like, okay, awesome, this is the game I'm playing. How am I going to win today, right? Because if your frontline retail team have that mentality, you are going to be the happiest retail store owner I can guarantee that there ever was, right? So this idea of gamifying the experience, if you've got a framework in place, and maybe that's greet, meet, close, upsell, or maybe it's something else that your store sort of specifies, but it's if you can kind of embrace this idea of, okay, I'm moving through the levels. Like I hit 10 out of 10 on my greeting, nailed it. I was like, good morning. And they like smiled, and it wasn't weird. It was totally fine. It wasn't awkward. And then, I saw them picking up some products. So I went around and I, opened with the compliment, and it was good. It was fine. And then it was probably more like a 6 out of 10. So how could I next time make my meeting, that like maybe 8 out of 10? How do I gamify that in my head? So next time I'm going to try it this way. And you start to like look at the way that you're operating as a retail sales assistant, and you can start to really dial up the game aspect to tweak these different phases to just kind of make it so much more fun, and hopefully become the expert on the shop floor that just hits 10 out of 10 every time in these different like little stages.
Absolutely. And you're right, as the owner too, you set the agenda, you set the style. It's very easy, and I've done it. I'm sure we've all done it. You have those days where it's like, oh God, that client's really annoying me. But we have to try and keep that away. I was listening to a podcast, and the person that being interviewed said, I do sometimes have crappy days, but no one knows it at his work because he's front of face, in front of the customer. That's really important too, to actually, sometimes you've got to, if you are there with the customer or your team, or, if you're having a bad day, to say to the team, I'm actually having a crappy day, I'm going to try and stay behind. Or if the team member, being honest even within your team, so that you can help each other through those, so that the customer never experiences that person having that moment, to help each other out of it.
100%. I completely agree. It's to build on that part of this, like sort of in my mind, the gamification aspect is, while we must honor being, genuine and authentic, 100%, your role as the facilitator of a connection in a retail store is also a little bit of a performance, right? And maybe this is just my sort of, teenage actor dreams coming back to haunt me, but it's part of the game that you're playing. Because even if you do have a bad interaction, or you're right, you have a bad day or something, you're still putting on the brave face, and you're still presenting what you need to hit the criteria for whatever framework you've decided to operate in. And that's kind of fun as well. It's not fun every day, and it's definitely not fun when you've not had your coffee, but it can be fun, and it does add to that. Ideas on this, but I really do think working in retail is probably one of the coolest jobs.
And that's great, because it is so often seen the other way, where it's just the stop measure. And I get it. I was the same as you. My first jobs were retail. I went there for my pay pack and I did my job, but I worked my 5 to 9 and, oh gosh, I'm getting paid for that. Particularly young people, they don't live it. They don't think about it outside of work hours. Maybe as you get a bit older, you start going, well, what else could I do? That, like it's just a sort of a mental progress I think we have as human beings. So because a lot of people start there, they assume if they stay there that that's not growth, but that's not the case. There can be plenty of growth in retail and can be incredibly fulfilling and incredibly exciting if you can get that mix right.
And again, like it takes me back to that first retail job. You're right. Like I'd turn up, I'd do a good enough job, but then you just kind of disconnect at the end of the day, and that's healthy, right? Like to sort of turn everything off after the end of the day. For your work every day, that's where you spend most of your time, right? Why wouldn't you try to make it as engaging and fun and exciting as you possibly can? It's a real pushback I hear, and I definitely had it myself when I first worked in first retail and then hospitality. It's there for hospitality as well, but it's no, you just work in a shop. Oh, that's cool. Like, when are you going to get a real job? And that is such, I feel pretty strongly that it's such an insult, because when you think about just the opportunities for career progression, but also just your own sort of intrinsic developmental progression in the playground of working in a retail store, there are so many things that you can work on and elevate through, both on a career perspective and then also just on, yourself. And again, like, you don't have to stick at retail forever, but if you were, using a strategy like greet, meet, close, upsell, yes, you're having good interactions with staff, with customers, but you're also, learning how to be confident. You're learning how to present positive body language. You're learning how to make eye contact and talk to strangers. Like, these are awesome skills that are going to serve you in whatever you decide to do, right? Maybe you go start your own business or whatever, but you're going to have to talk to strangers. You're probably going to have to smile at some stage and maybe make eye contact. Let's just remind everybody that retail is this amazing playground for development and growth, and it should be fun and it should be viewed as this really exciting place to be a part of in terms of the culture. But sometimes it isn't, and that always makes me sad a little bit. Yeah.
My son would be very happy if there was no eye contact, no talking, and he can stay doing his job with that age group. But anyway, we'll worry about him. I'm going to take us back because we've only got to M now. I'm just realizing we haven't even got to C. Tell us about closing.
Yes, amazing. Okay, so closing, this is probably one of the trickiest stage. Aside from meeting, it's probably the hardest part. So asking for somebody to give you their money, right? You're asking for the sale. That's an intimidating thing. It can be really tricky, and you feel maybe a little bit awkward, and you don't want to be a bully or push them or anything like that. The most important thing to remember, if you've got sort of any aversion to closing or being a closer or closing the sale, is you've done everything right in the lead up, right? You've greeted them well, you've met them, you've got rapport going, you've hopefully got a bit of banter, you've learned their story, you've maybe talked about the product that they're looking at. And we like to keep things, I am an advocate for keeping it customer centric. So maybe you've not talked about all of the products and features of that particular product, but you've talked about the ones that based on their story they're going to be interested in. If you've done all of those things, you should have no doubt in yourself about saying, like, hey, I can see this one, it's you're quite liking it. Why don't I pop it up at the till and you can take a look around and see if there's anything else that catches your eye. It is not a case of you're pushing them into closing a sale. You're there to be a partner in a purchase, right? You're there as their facilitator. The other important thing to remember about this stage, and why we're total geeks for conversion rate, right? That's one of the core metrics that we like to provide in our software. But conversion rate means that you are focusing on selling something to a percentage of the people that have come into your store. That does not mean that you need to sell something to every single person that has come into your store today, just a percentage of them. So if you get to the closing stage, and maybe you've done everything right, but you can see that the sale is not going to fly. It doesn't feel right. It feels a bit awkward. Maybe it does feel a bit slimy. If you're looking at your conversion rate as one of your core kind of KPIs, it's okay if you don't keep pushing that customer. Do you know what I mean? It's okay to let that sale go as long as you're hitting conversion in other places. If that makes sense.
And you can also help them along. Say, look, just in case I can see you're not quite sure, do you want me to write it down for you? So if you want to have a look on the website when you get home, or you can give us a call and we can do it over the phone if you decide you do want to go ahead down the track. So make it easy for them to finish the sale if they need that little bit of time, or they need to talk to a partner or whatever it might be that is their measure up, all these things that can be reasons that they don't want to do the sale on the spot.
Like, just to build on that, it's if you are worried about your sales and you're monitoring your conversion and you can see that you're not hitting your targets, you need to upskill and train your team and empower them to be more confident closers. But if you are overall hitting your targets and everything like that is looking healthy and good, this is just the part of the game where you, like, I'm not very good at sports. I am definitely more of a retail person, but this is the closing stage, is that master level in the game where you try and sink the putt, right? You try and hit the goal. That's the game that you're playing. If you miss, sometimes that's okay. Ideally, you hit the goal post if you can, but it's all just a game and we're trying to make it fun. And you should under no circumstances feel any doubt if you've done all the prerequisites correctly. You shouldn't feel any doubt or lack of confidence in yourself about saying, so are we happy to take this one today? Like, that's your job. That's exciting. And that's part of the game. Yeah.
And I love just, would you like me to take that to the counter so you can keep having a look around? I think that always works well. It's simple. We used to, we'd have baskets, and when people were buying a lot, because they were kind of bulky items. So would you like us to take the basket? I can give you another one. And then you can make a bit of joke. Oh, you want me to fill that as well? I'm like, oh, go ahead, make my day, But it's banter. It still helps the customer. That you're not forcing them to buy anymore, but you are making their life easier whilst they're in the store.
100%. I'm a sucker. People, when they use this on me, it always works, like 100% every time, even though I know what they're doing. But I'll be walking around a store and it's one of those triggers that you look out for if you're a retail sales assistant. If they're carrying product around, or in my case, usually, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit of a shopaholic, but when I'm carrying, items on my arm and I've got sort of a pile over here and I'm carrying this, and then someone says, why don't I pop these up at the counter for you? You can keep having it. Look, I can see you like this style. So, if you get sort of turned into this direction, that's where I would go. But when they take the items off you, naturally, my pile refills because suddenly my hands are free now. And I'm going, well, I need a jacket. And gosh, of course, if I'm going to buy the jacket, I need the skirt and I need the shoes. And, it's a wonderful technique and it works for a reason, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you. Okay, so now we close the sale. Now, upsell.
So first, you've achieved, you've won, right? That's in the gaming sort of mindset of that. You've hit the goalpost. Awesome. Like, you're high-fiving yourself. Now it's time to maximize. And you should 100%, this should be your default. If you can, you should always default to upselling. The perspective can sometimes be like, oh, I don't want to just, I've already taken their money for this product and I don't want to just take them for a ride or anything. But if you're approaching it in the right way and you're being genuine and authentic, your motivation should always be, okay, how can I create the most value for my customer, right? If they've brought like an experience I had in a store the other day, I brought quite a nice pair of leather boots, right? And they're a pretty decent price point. I was pretty happy with them. And I get up to the counter and the lovely lady behind the till, she's like, oh, these are gorgeous. And we had a bit of a chat back and forth. And she goes, well, do you have any leather care, like the beeswax that you use to polish the leather? It's going to keep it like shiny and protected and make sure that it doesn't crack or wrinkle or anything like that. And I was like, no, I don't. And she was like, well, shall I throw it in for you? I mean, you've got it. And I can even polish them right now. If you want, I'll do the first polish so you can see how I do it. And then, and you've got it and you can protect them and it's going to make them last way longer. I was like, heck yes, 100%. Throw that in for me. Like, absolutely. There was no thought in my brain of like, oh, she's just, upselling for the sake of upselling. No, she was trying to help me make sure that I made just absolutely the best purchase decision that I could. So that's the key to really great upselling. I think it's a conversation. It's not just would you like a $3, with that? And we do $3 bags and $5 drink bottles and yada, yada. It's like, if you have to do that, try and make it a little bit more of an interaction and keep the connection going for that stage. I think it's really important.
And I think that makes me think that if you've got good sellers in your
Mm.
store, think about what could be natural upsellers
Yes.
to those items so that, obviously it's easy with shoes. I'm thinking even lingerie. I know they have
Mm.
lingerie cleaner that they sell. There's some things that are natural add-ons. Homewares, you might have to think about it, but it might be that someone has a candle and you could have near the counter beautiful candle lighters that are an inexpensive add-on that someone could look at. So if you think about what sells really well in your store, you may find that you've got the perfect items there that you just need to mention to them or have close by.
And I think you've said something that's an absolute gem. I'm going to pull it out of what you just said. It's have it nearby. That's the other thing. When you think about where in the store are you closing, right? You're normally going to be up at the point of sale or the till or the checkout where you're taking the payment. This is like sort of more common sense than anything. But if you've got natural add-on products that you're trying to kind of use, have them up at the counter so that your team is like able to say, well, here is this thing, and you can pull it up and it's really close by and they don't have to wander across the store to
Yep.
find it. It's like that's not logical. Make it common sense if you can.
Yeah, and if there are other little things that are add-ons that are really inexpensive, and I can't think of an example with the shoes, but we used to sell wreaths, for example. It
Mm.
might be that someone spent a few $100s on a wreath. We could have little hooks for the wall that we could give them. Sometimes you can upsell an item and then you can also surprise them with something that just means they don't have to then go to Bunnings or whatever hardware shop to
Yeah,
finish off the creation of whatever they're doing. Those little things really make a difference to how a person feels as they leave your store.
massively. And it's, again, it just comes back to that, how can I create as much value for my customer? I think it's made me think of one little thing, which is a tiny tangent, but it takes me back to if you've set yourself up in the meeting phase to upsell, you're going to be more ready for success. And what I mean by that is if you're in the meeting phase and you're recommending product, how are you recommending it in a way that it sets it up to be either an outfit or a group or a
Mm.
bundle? Like, way back there at the beginning, you're saying, yeah, this is the perfect jacket for you, but the matching skirt has been selling really popular. It's a really popular combo. I'll pop both in the changing room for you so you can try them on together and just see what the outfit looks like. No pressure. I'll put the shoes, outside the door so you can try those on as well. You're setting yourself up for that later stage so that it's much easier to kind of segue into that. Otherwise, it's sometimes can feel a bit, like you're being a bit pushy, but set yourself up for success earlier on. Yeah.
Totally. And customers, particularly when they're coming into independent retailers, they're not there for sale, they're there for service, there for the products, and there for solutions. So if the solution is multiple products together, that will work for a lot. Or it might mean that they take one item now and then they can come back and buy others, but they know what it's going to look like together.
Yeah.
And as long as you're solving the problem for the customer, you're going to get that buy-in from them and they can see again, we're going to come back and say it again, genuine. They can see that what you're telling them is genuine. You're not just reading from a script, not just trying to upsell them half the store. Then they'll trust you, with the recommendations that you make.
Yeah. 100%. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now we have talked so much about the what happens in the bricks and mortar store because that's what you do. As I said, I just love that that's what your socials do. But I want to talk about what Bellwether is and tell people because first of all, it's Ask Bellwether, Bellwether is the Instagram handle, and also the website is askbellwether.com. Uh, and I didn't have access to this when I had my store, but when we had the store in the peak time, we had a lot of customers in the door and a lot of staff there for a single store. And I wish I'd had this tool because I'll get you to explain it, but basically providing the analytics from the people who come into your store, so much opportunity, so much gold that you can give your retailers. So tell us a bit about what Bellwether does and what you offer.
To kind of distill it down to what I sort of, I guess our pitch, if you will, is Bellwether. You could describe it as it's a really deeply intelligent piece of software that is designed to help you identify what your hidden opportunities are, right? So money that you're leaving on the table in your store, and it's also there to help guide you towards cutting out unnecessary inefficiencies in your store operations. What I usually say is Bellwether is a piece of software that hopefully is going to make retail in your store so much more fun, but it's also going to make it so much more accountable, and you're going to have more data-driven decisions, because we're starting to kind of get into the analytics side, and you can't sort of dice around with data too much. If you've got the stats, it is what it is, and this is how we drive success. Essentially what Bellwether does is we'll use hardware to count footfall coming into your store, right? And then we'll connect up to your point of sale or your till, and we'll be able to see the transactions coming through. And then we use a combination of that to provide what we believe are some really deeply insightful data tiles that you can use to monitor your progress over time. So a couple of the data aspects that we provide would be namely conversion, right? So how many of the people that are coming into your store today have you sold something to? And I totally geek out about conversion, because back when I was working in the store, right, you so often you get those days, you've got a sales target you've got to hit. Say it's like, just for easy math, say it's $1,000, you've got to hit $1,000 today. But maybe it's a quiet day, or maybe on the flip side, it's a crazy busy day. You're totally run off your feet, and there's like an event in town, and suddenly half of the city has decided to empty into your store, and you're completely run off your feet. You've got these fluctuations that happen. And if you're just basing your success off something like a sales number that you've hit, it's really hard to understand if that success is accurate or not, right? Whereas if you're monitoring something like conversion, it adjusts for demand. If you have 100 people come into your store today, and it's your job to sell to 10% of them, you need to sell to 10 people. That's a really easy, adjustable metric that you can really hold yourself accountable to and drive success for the store. So that's conversion. I could go on and on. I love it. Yeah.
It makes it clear also, as you said, there's fluctuations. And so if you're in a retail store, let's say you've got multiple stores, if your marketing team isn't getting people through the door, it's not the retail shop floor staff problem. So you can't sell if there's no one there. Or unfortunately, if you've got some staff members who aren't performing, then you can see time and time again that they need maybe more training, or if that's not going to be enough, then they're not the right people for your team. So it gives you the data to do that. And what I also love, sort of sitting back, how I would have used it, particularly planning the next season based on, so the previous season gives you a bit of an idea. But you often hear when retailers are trying to cut back their expenses, they'll cut a staff member. And that's often, of course, staff is a big part of the cost. But let's say you've got Saturday data for the last 3 months, and it says that your average order value is $100 and you're selling 50 orders a day. And then you drop a staff member and your average order value drops to $80.
Yeah.
Does that mean that it's because, unless whether your numbers stay the same, you might still be selling to 50, but it's dropped, and it becomes very clear what's going on if you can see that the number of people through the door are the same as what you had before.
Yep, 100%.
That your team is not able to perform their job because they're overworked. Or at the other end, if there are times when there's clearly too many staff on for the number of people through the door, you can reduce the staff numbers in those times and use the analytics, use the data to get it as close to right. I mean, clearly, as you say, when you have a lucky day when everyone walks in your door anyway, that's brilliant, but it just helps make it clear what you need to do.
100%. There's sort of add-ons that we can kind of offer and sort of build onto the dashboard itself, like the core product. One of the add-ons that we offer is a rostering tool, and it essentially allows you to understand what your average staff to customer ratio is, so how many staff members to people throughout the day, right down to the hour, everything like that. And then you can also kind of use that to understand whether or not your staff to customer ratio sort of fluctuations and how that changes is, you're right, like affecting your conversion overall. It's very interesting. And sometimes it's quite surprising, right? Like that, sometimes you might be a little bit overstaffed and you actually can get away with maybe one less person, But of course, that's not something you can just change overnight. You've got to sort of phase it through. So being able to have the data that sits there and kind of guides you around, okay, we made a shift change to this, and we reduced someone's hours by a couple over here, and it's really quite dialed down deep into the very nitty gritty of what's really going on. So it's pretty insightful. It's
I would have definitely had that add on the roster. That's just
Yeah.
that's mind-blowingly useful. The other thing that I found amazing from when we spoke is, quite honestly, the starting point is very reasonable for most retailers. So just tell us a little bit about the starting. Obviously, there's packages, there's options, there's, way to go, but don't be put off, because I think as independent retailers, you can sometimes think, oh, this technology is only for the big guys. But if you've got 10 plus staff that, you're rostering, you're probably at that time that, you really should be looking at these kind of tools.
To counter that slightly, I'd argue that even some of my sort of favorite customers are much smaller independent boutiques, right? Because you maybe don't have a couple of hundred people walking through the door. Maybe you literally do have 100, right? So if you're not measuring for things like conversion, that's pretty detrimental to your business overall. So it really is for both ends of the spectrum in terms of, big box to much smaller. And I think having some of that accountability, particularly when you are like even a team under 10, like a couple of people and maybe you've only got one store, having the visibility gives you kind of eyes in the sky, and it gives you a much clearer way to set your goalposts and progressively dial things up consistently over time, right?
And in fact, just before you go into the numbers, that, for me, I wasn't on the floor because my job was the marketing. So probably, again, far more relevant because I wasn't seeing it. I was just relying on ad hoc information. So if you're not on the floor, that would be another kind of person, regardless of the size, where this is powerful. And it's not about spying on your staff, and it's not about doing the wrong thing by your staff. It's about working with the staff and helping them when they need help, and making savings for you when you can make savings for you. It's it's a tool for benefiting all.
A good saying I heard, it's not a carrot and a stick. It's the carrot out of this carrot and the stick sort of option. It's definitely not a reason to point fingers. And I think the way we always like approach it, because it is quite intimidating, right? You say I'm bringing this tech in and it's going to tell me all this stuff, and suddenly that kind of excuse where you call up your manager maybe and like it was just pretty quiet today, like that's why we couldn't hit sales, it was just a bit of a it was a really quiet day. Suddenly that excuse is removed, right? Because you can log in and you can say, well, I know it wasn't a quiet day, like what's actually going on, right? You've got this kind of accountability partner in a conversation with you. While that can maybe seem intimidating at first, it should always be approached as like, okay, this is the channel that we use to really turn this into a much funner, much more engaged workplace where it is a game and we are playing the different levels and we're trying to hit the goalposts in terms of whatever our conversion targets are, or whatever we want to reduce our lost sales by this amount, or whatever data piece you're really diving into. It's a positive and exciting thing. It should always be framed as such. But you're right. Sometimes it can be a little bit like, oh my goodness, I've got all this data coming through. Yeah, no, it's definitely not meant to be intimidating or scary in any way. It's a really exciting product. Yeah.
And tell us where we're starting price, because I broke you up.
Okay. In terms of how the pricing works, I'm going to leave out hardware, right? Because it's a case-by-case basis. Sometimes there's hardware in the store that's already counting.
Hardware's a counter for anyone who's wondering what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes there's existing hardware that we can just integrate into, or sometimes you can purchase hardware through Bellwether, or sometimes we've even got a few manual counting scenarios where, you're just out there with the clicker and all of that. Good on you. I couldn't do that, but good on you. Yeah, so in terms of the software, it's usually a subscription model, right? And starting base price is around $89 per month. So when you break that down, it's like it's pretty quick math, but it's about $20 a week, right? In the month, and it's about $3 a day in terms of your costs. Yeah,
1 hour a week saved by having, and again, your rostering might be add-on, but a couple of hours saved by getting the right rostering to start with, understanding your conversion if you need to adjust, maybe having one more senior staff member on with someone who's a bit more junior to help the conversion ups in those times while they learn more, those sort of things, you will well and truly cover the cost. I just know that for me, it would have been a tool I would have found so valuable. I was just so thrilled to actually hear about it when we spoke, because I think there's so much power in that. We don't have to get bogged down in analytics, but there are some key things that we do need to know. We need to know on our e-commerce site, we need to know in our retail store what those basic figures are so that we can maximize our results, because we are not in it just to play with pretty things. We do need to make money. And we have a lot of staff relying on us as well, so we need to do it well. And a tool like this, I think, really helps us. So well done to your team for the team. And I had a quick look at the platform when we spoke, and I was like, oh my God, I was super excited by it.
Well, I think it all comes back to like what pretty much gets us out of bed in the morning, right? It's like what our company is pretty much founded on the basis of, why I love working here is it's like our whole mission and goal and everything that we do and try and innovate with and offer creative solutions to. It's all we want to do is help retailers really thrive, right? So we're not setting up crazy, when you think analytics, it's not, some spreadsheet sort of like boom, 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 all this data. It's like, no, we want to provide insightful data that you can use the insights, right? And you can quickly understand, okay, this insight means I should take this action. We want to help you generate action out of your data insights. We want to help you along that journey.
Totally agree. And I think it does a brilliant job of it. So congratulations, as I say to the team. Well, I think we need to wrap it up because we've had a fabulous chat. I want to just reinforce it's Ask Bellwether. So ask BELLWETHER.com and then the @ Ask Bellwether for Instagram. I will also be sharing Trinity's LinkedIn and the LinkedIn for Ask Bellwether, and these links as well on the show notes for anyone. Make sure you follow that Instagram page because there's so much gold in there, and it's just great reminders for everyone of what we need to be doing. And easy ones to show your staff too as little reminders of what we should be doing in the store daily to engage our customers and to maximize our sales opportunities. So Trinity, thank you so much for today. This was amazing.
No, thank you. I'm so grateful to come on the talk, and I can't wait to do another one sometime. We can
awesome.
dive into some
I'm,
other
I'm holding you to that.
yeah. Awesome. No, really appreciate it, and yeah, big admirer of your work. So keep doing what you're doing. It's creating a lot of value. Yeah.
So if anyone has not subscribed to the podcast, please make sure you subscribe. We'd love to have you here or let other retailers know about us. Any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me or to Trinity. And Trinity and the team, they've got demos you can do. Also, I meant to mention, if you go onto their website, you'll see you can book a demo, which is well worth looking at as well. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, thank you, Trinity. And to everyone, have a sensational day.